los símbolos de la opresión. Pero aquí hoy en La Guaira está el símbolo de la valentía, de la resistencia, de la fuerza. ¡Libertad! 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 ¡Libertad!
I think when it comes to Venezuela and waiting for some sort of a spark that could topple Maduro's regime, we are witnessing it right now. We are seeing it play out on the streets. We are seeing it play out internationally. This is the moment. I think when it comes to Venezuela, a change in leadership is absolutely feasible. Even if this fails, this is a massive step in the right direction towards freedom for Venezuela. Literally anybody would be better than Nicolas Maduro. We have Juan Guaido swearing himself in and drawing the support of not just the United States, but of France, of Canada, of a coalition of players who are backing him. If you're scratching your head and saying, I've never heard of this guy, you're not alone. Really, up until a month ago, nobody had heard of him, and that's in a lot of ways the nature of Venezuelan politics. You have to think of it almost as a carousel. If this had happened a month ago, it probably would have been someone different, and if it happened a month later from now, could very well be a different person altogether. Because keep in mind, this wasn't a unanimous decision within the National Assembly in Venezuela. He's very young, he's very inexperienced, 35 years old, and he started his career as a student activist. And there was a lot of back-channel discussions likely between the opposition and the United States.
Either you stand with the forces of freedom, or you're in league with Maduro and his mayhem.
Now is the time to stand for democracy and prosperity in Venezuela.
We are nowhere near out of the woods yet. The issue is, right now, the military, because the upper ranks of the military have pledged their allegiance to Nicolas Maduro, because over the years, Maduro has made them very rich. PDVSA, the state-run oil company, is overseen by generals who have been put in place by Maduro. So you do have people that are loyal to Maduro within that company, controlling the rigs. They don't support him because they love him. They support him because they fear him. There are reports that Russian agents are coming over to support and protect Nicolas Maduro. We've seen Russian fighter jets landing in Venezuelan airstrips. What would be the first big step towards a change in leadership that holds is if the lower rungs of the military, who live just like the citizens do, poorly. They're not rich, they're poor, they're hungry, and they are probably looking for a change, essentially defect. That's a big if. As long as Maduro is there, all bets are off. He's a dictator. Just because the US is backing his opponent doesn't mean he's going to pack up his toys and go home. Venezuela gave gold reserves to the Bank of England to be held. Maduro has repeatedly asked for this gold back, over $1 billion worth of gold. Essentially, the Bank of England has said to him, you're too drunk, we'll give you your car keys back when you sober up, but right now you can't have control of a car. When it comes to the future prosperity of Venezuela, I think a huge factor is going to be diversification within the economy. If they continue to rely on oil, they're going to repeat the same problems. Venezuela has more oil than Russia, than China, than Iran and Iraq combined, than Saudi Arabia, than Canada, than the US. They have over 300 billion barrels in the ground. We could call that upwards of $14 trillion of value. But the oil rigs don't function anywhere close to capacity. They function on average below 50%. And their refineries operate at around 20%. As a member of OPEC, they're one of the lower producers, obviously. But if they all of a sudden become a player again, well, that's something that we need to consider on a global perspective. It's going to require a lot of repairs to be done to the infrastructure. So we're talking a process that's likely going to take years, not months or weeks. But with a regime change, you would be back on the course towards a healthy output that would ultimately be beneficial for the people of Venezuela. There's been stories about foreign tankers pulling up, picking up the oil, and then folks who work on the Venezuelan oil rigs will get on these ships and beg for food. Give them the oil, and they'll say, by the way, do you have anything to eat? Russia is essentially getting what they want. They get free oil, basically, as a result of the money they've loaned Venezuela. Their priority, morning, noon, and night, is protecting a fellow dictator. I don't think it's beyond Vladimir Putin to recognize what's happening in Venezuela and to then maybe manufacture some sort of conflict elsewhere in the world to draw the focus maybe back to Syria, maybe to Ukraine, because Venezuela is incredibly important to Russia. He wants another dictator in that region because it will enable Putin to set up some sort of military stronghold within the Americas. I think we could very well be at the beginning of Cuban Missile Crisis 2.0. All the pieces are in place. You have Turkey playing a role, you have Mexico playing a role, you also have China playing a role, you have Brazil playing a role. Literally every country, every world power has their eyes on this situation. Maduro represents a crisis. If there is that civil war, that's what Putin wants, because war undermines democracy in this instance. It undermines stability. It creates chaos. Russia is a shark right now, and they see chum in the water in the form of Venezuela, and they are not going to relinquish that opportunity easily. They are going to fight to keep Maduro exactly where he is. All of these pieces are lining up for something terrible. I don't know what it is, and I don't know what form it's going to take. Nobody does. But you can't have one country, two presidents, in an outcome or in a way that doesn't lead to something violent and potentially horrific. This is a country that's not beyond repair. It's going to take a lot of effort, it's going to take a lot of money, and it's going to take a lot of patience. But the number one thing is to start protecting the people, getting them the food and the water and the medicine that they need, then assessing what the debt situation is, assessing what needs to be done to get people working and get jobs and opportunity, start repairing the infrastructure, and then from there becoming a player within the global community and not being an isolationist state anymore.